Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jeanne Shaheen. I am a senator from New Hampshire in the United States, and we have a bipartisan delegation here. We are very excited to be the first delegation to meet with the new Prime Minister. We're also the first delegation to meet with the new Ambassador Hoekstra from the U.S. to Canada, and we have had very good meetings with the Prime Minister, with the Minister of Defense, with the Foreign Minister, and your Minister of Industry, Science and Innovation, talking about the challenges that we face to the relationship. 4 of us are from countries, states that border Canada, and Senator Kaine has had a long working relationship with Canada, so as he will tell you, a lot of Canadians come to his state of Virginia. Clearly, because of this cross-border relationship, we know how important Canada is to our states and how important the United States and the Canadian relationship is to both countries. So we had a good discussion talking about tariffs, talking about ways in which we are cooperating militarily and in the national security space, talking about the importance of the economic relationship that we have, and we hope that this meeting will continue very positive discussions toward ensuring that some of the cracks that have appeared in the relationship in recent months are healed and we move forward together. I'm going to turn it over now to Kevin Cramer, who is my co-lead senator from North Dakota.
Thank you, Jeanne. Thanks to the country of Canada for their great hospitality in Ottawa. It's just been a fantastic time to be here. And I would just, first of all, echo everything that Jeanne said, and to allow us to get to questions quicker, I would just say I think that for me the word of the day is encouraged. I'm encouraged by what we've heard today, and I'm encouraged by what we're seeing in terms of moving forward together. I'm encouraged by the leadership here in Ottawa, and it was a very special treat to be able to meet the Prime Minister, who I can understand why he won. I just see what people see in him, and then also just to reiterate, and my message to Canadians has been, as somebody who basically grew up, was born just a few miles from the Manitoba border. We have a 5,000-mile long border. That's a long border. But our friendship is a lot longer. And there's no way, in my view, that any temporary bump in the road can become a permanent bump in the road. And I think that was really clear today. And that's my commitment, is to do everything I can on my side of the border and of the capital end of the aisle to continue working toward the healing that Jeanne spoke of. And then, more importantly, what we're able to do leaning in and going forward.
Okay, very good. I'm Amy Klobuchar, and I chair, along with Senator Cramer, the Canadian-American Interparliamentarian Group in the Senate. He is the new Republican, which I am really glad about, because he literally knows various premiers, and he also cares a lot about this. And we not only share a border, but we both share a border with Canada. And so he also is close with the president, and I think we both agree that the meeting between the Prime Minister and the president went well. I think that's a general consensus on both the Canadian side and the American side, and we're here to reinforce that yes, we have a lot of work to do, but Canada has been our best friend and our best ally for as long as we can go back, fighting by our side in 2 world wars. On September 11th, the first country there on the ground, the country that does $1 trillion in trade back and forth across the border, and a complete and utter important ally when it comes to the economies of the world right now. I don't think you're surprised that some of us up here were not a big fan of the tariffs, and I'm very glad that this is being negotiated right now. I was an early supporter of the USMCA. I think there's changes that can be made to the USMCA in the review process that will ensue. But I think right now our goal is to get this relationship back on track as we go into the summer season. I personally want Canadians to visit Minnesota as well as the rest of the beautiful states in our country. And I'm hopeful that we will be able to get this back on track soon. That is my goal and our goal up here. And when the Senator Shaheen, who's such an incredible leader on the Foreign Relations Committee, mentions cracks in the relationship, she's right. But I know what she was referring to was the Ottawa Charge and the Minnesota Frost and their tied playoff games. I am going to be attending the game Saturday night, yes, in Minnesota as we look to break the tie. But I'm being so diplomatic that I won't weigh in, but go Frost.
You're so diplomatic.
Hey, everybody. Tim Kaine from Virginia. They let me come, even though I'm not a border guy. Canada is Virginia's #1 trading partner, and Canadians love Virginia Beach. It's the place we in Virginia go to vacation every summer, and we always see Canadian license plates all over town. It's a very, very important relationship for us in Virginia. I am on matters of the economy, I'm very much a pro-trade guy, so I don't love tariffs. And on matters of national security, I serve on the Armed Services and Foreign Relations Committee. I'm very much a pro-alliance guy. I love alliances, and there hasn't been a better ally than Canada. So we've got this maneuver to work through, two new heads of state in President Trump and Prime Minister Carney, but the meetings we had today were wide-ranging. We talked about tariffs. We talked about Golden Dome and national security. We talked about NATO. We talked about Canada's own economic plans going forward, the kinds of industries that they want to advance, the possibilities for joint ventures and joint innovation with the United States. So we've covered a lot of ground. We're going to finish the day with some private sector leaders and hear from them and see what we can do to work together in common. But I feel, I'll go to Kevin's word. I think encouraged would be a good word to summarize it. We heard that from the Prime Minister. That was his reaction to his meeting with the President. We've heard it from others, and we feel that too as we hear what we think likely path forward is. So it's exciting to come. We also heard just now that this is the first delegation of U.S. senators to visit a prime minister in 5 years. That we shouldn't wait so long. We need to do more of these, and we're really glad we can be part of it. And now, Peter Welch from Vermont.
Thank you. My colleagues have talked about the enormous economic relationship we've had. Vermont's biggest trading partner, of course, is Canada, but that is true for 34 states. But you know, there's something more important. It's the affection that we have, Vermonters, with Canadians. And there's been a lot of heartbreak about the disruption in that, in an enormous aspiration to restore that, because it makes us feel better and richer when we maintain those emotional ties that we've had with Canada. At the end of the day, all of us are here advocating that when, in this time of disruption, we get out on the other side with the notion that we'll be stronger together than by being apart. So we want to restore that. You know, in Vermont, we have a famous library that I invite all of you to visit that is in Derby Line, Vermont. And the fiction side is, I won't say which side it's on, but it's on one side is on the Canadian side and one side is on the American side. And we want to keep that open, all right? We want to keep that open, but it's really emblematic of just the enormously deep affection that we have in mutual dependence, I would say, in mutual respect that we have, and we want to strengthen, not weaken. Thank you.
Senator Cramer, could I first ask a question to you, and then I have some Senator
Sure.
You know, President Trump appears determined to destroy the Canadian steel and aluminum industry and our auto industry. You were saying that there is a path forward. Can you enlighten us in terms of what you see that path forward? Because it's difficult for us to see it.
Sure, I understand. Well, I wasn't, like I said earlier, I was encouraged by what I heard from the Prime Minister today. I was also encouraged by what I've heard from people in the Trump administration, that they are at the table, that they are in fact meeting, they are discussing things like steel, aluminum, the auto industry, some of the areas that where we feel that sort of urgency to get to. I don't think I wouldn't say that he's out to destroy the Canadian industry. What he's out to do, in my view, is to sort of level the playing field and make sure that across all sectors that the United States and Canada are treating each other with equal respect. Whatever tactics he uses or strategy he's deployed, I think that's behind us now, and we're moving forward to try to fix those things. Those are chief among them. I'm not going to reveal anything that I may know, but I fully expect that we're going the right direction. It feels good from here and everybody that we've talked to.
Senator Kaine, I wanted to ask you about the fentanyl and the president using national security. And we don't have a problem with fentanyl in this country. We have a problem with people being
Right.
on the boat.
Yeah.
We don't have we're not sending a lot of fentanyl across the U.S. border. It's a problem for us too. The Senate did pass a measure on that, but it wasn't able to go anywhere. Can you tell us, is there any more work to be done on
Sure,
that area?
sure. So first, Canada is doing a number of things to deal with fentanyl. We all agree fentanyl is a crisis. For the United States, the emergency is with Mexico and China. It's not with Canada. So that's why I challenged the emergency under which President Trump imposed the IEEPA tariffs on Canada. And we got 51 votes. It is still pending in the House. The House was afraid enough of this vote that they turned off the privileged nature of it so that it wouldn't automatically be called up. But there are members trying to get a discharge petition to have it called up. And this is under a challenge statute where you can renew the challenge after a certain period of time. That certainly would be my intent. If we don't get this solved through a negotiation, I'm going to renew the challenge when the time is right. But I think I agree with all my colleagues. The right thing to do is, in the course of this negotiation, let's find a resolution, especially if you think about it. The administration's doing negotiations with countries all over the world, but Canada's in the top three. And in the top three, China, Mexico, Canada, Canada's the one where we have the most in common. It should be the easier deal to land because Mexico and China have all kinds of other complicators. So I am going to continue to insist that we should turn off this emergency mechanism when it's timely to do so. But I hope I don't need to. I hope we get to a resolution point before I would bring it up again.
And I think one of the things that you've acknowledged is, and I co-sponsored that resolution with Senator Kaine and Senator Warner, is the sense of urgency here, that we want to get this negotiated as soon as possible. I mentioned the tourism and Canadians coming to the United States and the number changes that we've seen on that. From the Grand Marais bike ride, probably not first on your mind, on the tip of Minnesota, to Virginia Beach, to places in New Hampshire. So we have seen that effect, but the Canadians have seen the effect too, with, as you mentioned, steel and aluminum. So our hope is we want to pursue Congress reinserting itself when it comes to our powers with regard to tariffs. We don't want to wait that long when it comes to this friendship that is like no other in the world, and we want to get this negotiated and are urging both leaders to do so. And I did want to emphasize again how grateful we were for the time the Prime Minister spent with us. It was incredible, and he was so focused on every detail of this relationship, and I think it goes a long way to trying to resolve this.
Thank you very much. Senator Shaheen, a very large part of your portfolio in the Foreign Relations Committee is NATO. You mentioned that one of the discussion points here throughout this trip has been on defense spending, urging Canada to raise their level of spending on defense in line with other NATO allies. Can you talk about how those conversations went today and also how the Prime Minister received that as well?
I thought they were very positive. Those are conversations that we've been having for several years now. Senator Kaine and I do the Halifax Security Forum almost every year, and so we've had previous talks with previous defense ministers about this issue, and it was very encouraging to hear the Prime Minister today acknowledge this effort and the importance of investing in defense, in Canadian defense, because of the national security threat we face. One of the other things we discussed is the potential for us to better partner to address the Chinese threat, both economically and militarily, that we're facing in the United States and in Canada and in the Arctic in particular. So I was encouraged by that conversation. I hope there will be something positive that will be announced. And we know that all of us in NATO have more work to do as we look at the threats that we're facing today from Russia, from China, and of course from Iran and North Korea.
Thank you, Senator.
Yes, good morning. The senator from Vermont mentioned a library at Darby Line, and I just wondered, perhaps you're aware of this, but Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem came to that library and jumped across that line several times, illegally entering Canada.
Fiction and nonfiction.
And while in Canada, she said 51st state, and then she would jump back into the United States and say #1, and she repeated this stunt 3 times. So given the number of threats and insults that have come from the Trump administration to Canada, which, I mean, there's a perception here that Americans don't understand the damage that those have done to the relationship, and the perception here that half of Americans supported that, the damage it's done to the people-to-people relationship between Canada and the United States. What hope is there of actually mending that relationship as long as people like Donald Trump and Kristi Noem remain in power? And is it enough simply to say, well, we've stopped the insults and the threats, now we're going to turn the page, let's all forget about it?
No, it's trust building. I mean, that hurt, okay, and it hurt a lot of Vermonters. Because we had our kids going back and forth across the line to play hockey. We had folks coming across from Canada that were taking care of kids that were relatives or grandchildren, and vice versa. So that's what I was talking about in the beginning. This made us heartsick, okay? And that's emotional, it's personal, it's community. It's all things that folks in Canada really value, and we in the United States really value, especially those of us along the border. So we'll get there, because those bonds of affection, I think, are enduring. Our message to Canada is nous aimons au Canada, and we'll get there.
And if I could just follow up on Golden Dome, geography seems to dictate that Canada would have to be involved for Golden Dome to work. And yet we've already seen Donald Trump hinting that this is going to be another case where the United States protects Canada at its expense, and Canada is going to be a freeloader. What guarantee is there for Canada, if it agrees to participate in Golden Dome, that it won't be portrayed again in that light falsely by President Donald Trump?
Well, I was at the announcement in the Oval Office earlier this week when he announced Golden Dome, and he 2 or 3 times referenced Canada's interest in participating in Golden Dome. It's geographically, to your point, obvious that one way or the other, we want to prevent incoming missiles from getting over the Arctic, and so clearly it's in our best interest to participate, but it's also in Canada's best interest. And I think Donald Trump's overtures the other day, I think he was saying it for a reason, and he said it repeatedly for a reason. And I frankly found his statements in the Oval the other day to be encouraging as far as Canada, and in several respects. One, to the question about NATO and Canada's contribution to its own defense. This isn't a new topic of concern for Americans. In the previous administration here, I had some pretty tough conversations with Prime Minister Trudeau, and are very encouraged by what's happening now. So I think Golden Dome presents one of the better opportunities, actually, to begin the healing. Because I think it's more than a symbol. It's tangible, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for both countries to work together on Golden Dome.
Okay, we're going to do 3 quick ones. Robert, we're going to go to Jeremy, and finally to Joel Dini with La Presse.
Senator Cramer, coming from your meetings today, what do you hope to take back to Washington, specifically the White House and to the President, to help possibly reframe his understanding of this relationship, and to all you guys have spoken about the connection and the bonds between the United States and Canada? Do you think that he is starting to reframe his understanding from his previous comments, and what will you bring back from your meetings today to?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I think the first thing I would emphasize, besides the national security, what seemed to be going the right direction with national security spending here by the new administration, or their intent, would be a common adversary oftentimes unites people, right? And for the moment, the United States has become an adversary to the Canadian people because of the offense that so many have felt. At the same time, the real adversary for the United States and Canada, that our number one adversary is China. And that, in fact, therein lies what I believe to be one of the greatest opportunities to heal this relationship, because we can unite around that common adversary with our integrated supply chains and some of the unique qualities of each country, where we don't have as much potash as you all do. We don't have the critical minerals that Canada does. We have some things that Canada does not have. And I think as we move forward, I think what I would stress with the President would be, let's keep our eye on the common adversary and how much stronger we can be. In fact, in the case of Canada and the United States, I believe 1 + 1 equals a lot more than 2.
On tariffs, Senator Klobuchar and I think Senator Kaine, you both touched on not being a fan of it. I think that's something Canadians can agree with as well. What's the message you take back to the administration on how to get a deal done and how to make progress on tariffs?
Well, I think what Senator Cramer was just mentioning, these two countries are just inextricably tied in our supply chains, in the commerce that goes back and forth, in the hockey games. It just doesn't end. And I think that when you look at that and you look at China and Russia and some of these other countries, we want to actually expand our trade arrangements. And when we look to the future and we see technology and AI, and if harnessed and done the right way, the potential for both of our countries with that, if we look at the future for energy and what we need to do, these are areas where we could actually become more powerful if we're smart about it. So that's what I actually find this moment where we have these two countries that have been ahead of the game when it comes to science and technology and moving forward and combining that with resources, and we need to combine those resources. That was the whole idea of the USMCA, and we need to continue that and build on it. So those ideas, if we talk about the treasure of our relationship from the past, which is emotional and real and continues big time in my state, unbelievably, just like Peter was talking about. But then I also go to like the current and the future. The current and the future is keeping these two countries and our economies close, because really good things could happen. So I think when you look at opportunities, that's the word. It's opportunities if we stick together, and we've just got to get through this and find a way. But it's really important what Peter Welch said, because it is not like we are naive about how hard this has been. Especially the border states, every single day we feel it. We know it's been bad, but we just want to get to a better place, and that's why we're here today.
I'll just pick up on what message to take back. I've long been an opponent of tariffs, but President Trump, even before being president, has long been a fan of them, even before he was president in term one. So I don't think I'm going to convince him to change his view on economic policy. But what might convince him is market conditions, the stock market, chaos, consumer confidence. What might convince him is Republicans beginning to join Democrats and voting on tariff resolutions. But what might convince him also is what Amy said, is the upside opportunities. I mean, we see huge upside opportunities in defense, for example. We met with Minister Jolie, and we said, if you wave a magic wand and all tariffs are gone, like, what are the critical sectors? AI, defense, energy. So defense is one of the three critical sectors. There's so much we can do together. So the market and other evidence will continue to show whether tariffs is a good or bad economic strategy. But maybe we can make plain the upside opportunities if we get past this moment, and that may be the thing that will ultimately find us to a great finish to this.
Yeah, Shaheen, also, so you came here with a goal in mind, I'm assuming. Is this the goal to sort of reset the relationship on a better basis? And will you bring that message to your colleagues in Congress, where there may be some influence that could be made about the future of that relationship?
Our goal in coming was because we all appreciate how important this relationship is. We've seen it in our states, we've seen it in the United States, and ultimately it's the Prime Minister and the President who will decide to reset the relationship. But what we can do is take back what we've heard here, the positive messages that we've heard, and I think sharing that with our colleagues in the Senate and in the House will be very important.
If I could, I would just add a little bit, to go back to sort of where we began. We're the first U.S. delegation to meet with the Prime Minister in 5 years. That's on us. But it wasn't like he was a real easy prime minister to want to meet with, quite honestly. I'd never had a good conversation with him.
I did.
Yeah, I'm sure, it depends on what the purpose of your meeting is. But it's a new day. Donald Trump was a transformational president. You have here a transformational prime minister. Two business guys. They know business. They know economics. They know how to work a deal. And they had an encouraging first meeting. We want to come and continue that momentum. And more than anything, we want to say to our Canadian friends, we still love you as much as we ever have. Go to the lakes of Minnesota. Come to North Dakota's big shopping centers. And this is off. I was tourism director in the early '90s, and easily the biggest economic factor in North Dakota's economy every year was the exchange rate. It depends on whether 1 million people came or 1.5 million people came to the States. So it is personal, it is economical, but again, there's every reason in the world to be encouraged. So that's the main goal was just to get to reestablish, if you will, the friendly relationship, and I think we've certainly done that.
We hope.
We are.
Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Thanks.